Continuing on with Chapter 3 with the facilitators of a culture of innovativeness. The phrase Skunk Works refers to new venture teams that operate outside the normal organizational hierarchy. This phrase was started by Lockheed Martin in the aerospace industry, and essentially because many large companies do become bureaucratic and find it very difficult to be innovativeness, they find that when their need for innovation is very high, they'll set up a separate group of people who have free rein to essentially explore new ideas. Companies that have used this in other industries include the automotive industry. General Motors has had Skunk Works. When IBM decided it needed to leave its mainframe business behind and get into personal computers, its headquarters was in White Plains, New York, and so it set up a Skunk Works in Research Triangle, North Carolina, so that those people were physically removed from the normal operating procedures. One other company that did this is a financial services company that found if they were going to do online trading, they couldn't have their normal business models at the foundation of online trading models because they were at odds with each other. And even in that industry, we see Skunk Works. I really like the history of words, and people say that Skunk Works' origin was when the United States was going through the era of prohibition, when it was illegal to sell hard liquor, and the phrase Skunk Works came about because we had all of these illicit distilleries in the Tennessee Appalachian Mountains that were hidden in the forest, but they were really stinky because of the mash and the cooking that has to be done to make liquor. And so these became known as Skunk Works, and for my international students, that's after a skunk, which is a little black and white animal that essentially releases a really horrible smell. The advantages of a Skunk Works is that it does bring creativity to a company. But think about this. If the only way that your company can be innovative is by having a Skunk Works, it's essentially an indictment against a culture of innovativeness, that the only way you can be innovative is outside your normal corporate process. And so many people believe that yes, Skunk Works can do great things, but if that's the way your company has to be innovative, it's probably just a band-aid on a symptom of a larger problem that needs to be fixed. Other facilitators of innovativeness include how does a company actively engage in learning? How does it get new knowledge? How does it transfer that new knowledge into the company's process? And again, there's a huge literature on a learning orientation. And I'm really thrilled that the co-author on your book, Stan Slater, this is his area of academic expertise. And we'll be covering this topic, market orientation, explicitly in the next chapter. Now, paradoxically, if a company is going to learn new things, they have to unlearn their old routines. And unlearning old routines is extremely difficult. Habits die hard, and so in order to engage in unlearning, a company has to be very proactive about if we're going to do new things, what does it mean that we have to undo and take away that previously worked for us? So unlearning. Corporate imagination essentially is the idea of being playful within the organizational environment. And in fact, many companies work very hard to set up physical spaces that are inspirational and that foster creativity among teams. And what we see here is that corporate imagination that is designed to envision new markets that don't currently exist, kind of like Elon Musk with the Hyperloop, we don't have transportation markets based on that kind of technology. They are totally willing to overturn existing assumptions about the way technology works. They're totally willing to not think about customers of today, this tyranny of existing customers, the served market. And they look outside their industry boundaries for new insights. And the idea here is we don't listen to what customers want. We get out in front of customers and lead them to what we think is possible. And these creativity exercises are key. One thing that Google has done, in addition to having a kind of a zany work environment, is they actually have space in their New York City office that is bio-inspired, based on biomimicry. Many people believe that nature is a source of innovation and inspiration. And one of the things I look at in my own research is how can companies stimulate a corporate imagination through using biomimicry protocols. The phrase expeditionary marketing has gone a little bit out of fashion, and the new phrase that's used for this in the business environment today, particularly in Silicon Valley, is called the lean startup. And the lean startup essentially follows an agile business model that is based on this idea of how quickly can we get our ideas in the market in order to get feedback to learn and refine our hypotheses about what customers want, what competitors will do, and what the best value proposition is. So what you see here, the metaphor, is rather than trying to analyze, refine, and then finally come out to market, years later with the best idea, what the lean startup is based on many times at bat rather than one home run in order to win the game. Light and fast is the rule of thumb here, and if you have not yet read the book The Lean Startup, I absolutely think it's essential reading for people going into technology marketing today. This diagram shows the relationship between this idea of fast learning in the market over time. The vertical axis is missing here, and the vertical axis actually is the quality of the innovation. And what you see is, based on the lean startup, is if we introduce our models early in the market to get feedback before they're fully refined, it actually leads to better revenue over time, potentially a bootstrapping model, than trying to engage in a lot of risky development and shooting for the highest quality possible. It could be we miss the time window of the market because it takes so long to do that, and it could be customer needs would change between time 1 and time 3 if we really waited for the best technology possible. Another facilitator of innovativeness is the idea of how does the company culture facilitate risk, and how does it tolerate risk? And it should not be risk averse. My friend Chris Wright, who works at Google, tells me that one of the ways people are evaluated at Google is how many of their ideas failed. Now this is interesting because most people are punished for failed ideas. In fact, in the consumer products industry, people are fired if they have an idea that doesn't do well in the market. But to facilitate innovativeness, if you want breakthrough thinking, you can't penalize people because only a certain number of breakthrough ideas are likely to succeed. So Chris said that if you don't have a certain percentage of your ideas that fail, it means you're not being creative enough and you're not thinking out of the box enough. So companies have to set up systems that actually tolerate mistakes, perhaps reward failure, in order to learn what the next iteration of the technology may look like. What you see here is that the mistake may actually be the next success. And the famous example is 3M with the Post-it notes and the glue that failed. Okay, people have to be compensated for their innovation. Appropriate reward system essentially is some way to share the royalties from inventions. When people work in high-tech companies, they do sign an invention assignment clause, and this is even true with university research. any research invented on campus by a professor becomes the intellectual property of the institution. And so do people want to give their best ideas to the company when the company makes the money from them? So often times what high-tech companies will do is they will have a royalty sharing program based on patents that a particular person invented. And we'll come back to this in our section on intellectual property because it highlights the importance of documenting through a lab notebook what a person was working on over time so that this idea of rewarding them for their innovations can come true. Many innovations don't take off in the market for quite some time, and so rather than having this quarterly, what did you do this quarter, companies have to have a long-term perspective. And again, just looking at academics, many academics are evaluated based on a 3-year moving average for what their ideas and publications are, because it can take a long time for ideas to come to fruition. Table 3.1 in your book has a complete listing of other facilitators of innovativeness, and I'm going to just recommend a few here. Heterogeneity or diversity is one of the most important aspects of survival in nature, and we see that true in the work environment as well. We need a diversity of disciplinary talent, we need a diversity of ethnic groups, gender groups, age groups, and the more that you can stir the pot with all these different perspectives, the more likely new insights will emerge. Customers can often be a facilitator of innovativeness because innovative customers need innovative solutions, and companies who work closely with their customers are able to bring those technologies to the market. Now, interestingly, does this frequent evaluation stifle innovativeness? Creativity needs to be bounded and guided to be useful, so frequent evaluation is actually critical, and innovation should be built into people's employee performance evaluations. Considerable freedom of action. Google allows people 20% of their time to work on projects that are outside the scope of their currently defined responsibilities. Educate employees about emerging technologies. Many companies have some sort of a workshop program simply to have this steady stream of insights and novel ideas coming into the company boundaries. Teams of diverse employees can generate new ideas, and this idea of communicating new ideas across the company is key, especially big companies where one useful idea may pop up in one division, another division could use it, but there's no way to communicate what's happening. So Google has a very innovative knowledge management system that's internal to the company that it invented to surface these kinds of pools of expertise to share. Okay, as I mentioned, what is an obstacle to maintaining a culture of innovativeness? Core rigidities essentially are these straitjackets that constrain a company. Routines, knowledge, and skills that we excessively rely on inhibit our ability to engage in creative new thinking and new perspectives. In high-tech firms, core rigidities often are based on cultural norms that give preference to R&D people, MIS professionals, scientists, whatever the company industry is in, over marketing personnel. And the reason this is a rigidity is because the marketing personnel are supposed to bring in market insights, customer needs. And when you have that, again, stirring the pot of these diverse ideas, that's when great breakthroughs happen. But if marketing people are systematically treated as second-class citizens, the insights they have to offer are not respected. And as a result, technical personnel are oftentimes constrained by what they think the market needs without actually having any validation of that. So again, unlearning and this learning orientation is key. We've already covered the innovator's dilemma, and another word for this is the incumbent's curse. And so I'd like you to be sure that you understand both what it is, the source of the incumbent's dilemma, and the solution, all three of which you see here on the slide. That is it for Chapter 3. Thank you for listening.